Mark, and I'd say I'm a lot more nervous being stood up here than when I used to sit down there and just jeer at everyone that was speaking. So hopefully you'll be a bit kinder to me today than I used to be to the people that used to speak up here. But it's been almost a year now since I completed my last day as a prison officer, and after 6 years at HMP and POA Moreland in my hometown of Doncaster, I handed in my resignation so that I could formally become the parliamentary candidate for Doncaster Central, and it was the honour of my life to be elected on July the 4th last year. I'm only the second prison officer to be elected to the UK Parliament, and I want to ensure everyone in this room that I carry that experience with me every single day. For me, having been around the Labour Party and the trade union movement for a long time, I can honestly say, and admittedly with some bias, that the POA is one of the best. Because the executive you have don't just understand what prison officers and similar roles go through by reading about it, they have lived it themselves. And our committees, all of you, understand the people you represent because you are in their boots on the same landings and know the same issues that our members face because you face them as well. And that is not the same in all trade unions that exist today. As a POA chair at HMP Moreland for 4 years, I know all too well what every person in this room does each day to support their colleagues through the toughest of times and ensure the highest possible standards of safety in the most difficult of circumstances. And I know it means taking calls out of hours in the middle of night, dealing with people's personal crises and issues which you never want to talk about ever again, and making sure that people are safe and getting a fair hearing for the employer. And I know there'll be people working in prisons today that wouldn't still have jobs if it wasn't for people like you in this room. And I've taken my experience as a POA chair, which I'd say was more stressful probably than being a prison officer itself, with me to Parliament to stand up for my constituents in Doncaster, as well as the many prison staff actually that live in Doncaster, because we have 4 establishments. And that is why I am so proud to be part of the POA, even today, because it is for prison officers and run by prison officers, and that is what makes it so special. This also makes our union a powerful voice when pushing for change, and I am personally proud to bring this frontline voice to work with me every day, because experiences that we have and that all of you continue to have must be heard in the rooms where decisions are made. When I was first elected, I was pleased, as Mark said earlier, to be appointed as the Parliamentary Private Secretary to the Ministry of Justice. And whilst this does mean that I can't raise matters in the Houses of Parliament related to the department, what it does do is give me a seat at the table so that my experience and the experiences that all of you are having can be heard. And look, none of us are under any illusions about the scale of challenge that our prisons face, and I'm sure you've told James Timpson all about that earlier today. And we all saw the capacity crisis coming on the last government with their little effort to resolve it. And I have to say, when I have to sit in the chamber when the opposition call an urgent question on prison officer violence, when they had 14 years to do something about it, I find it really quite galling. But I do that every single week, and I make sure that they know that is their legacy. That is their legacy. And whilst there are no quick fix solutions, and I know that change won't be happening quick enough for anyone in this room or any of the establishments, I will say that in the short time I have been an MP, I do have confidence that Shabana Mood and James Timpson do have the ability and the drive. They are willing to listen. They do want to work with the POA to tackle the crisis head on and take some difficult decisions to bring about meaningful solutions. Horrific incidents of violence have been in the news recently, and I'm sure they've been discussed a lot throughout this week. And I just want to say that I stand in absolute solidarity with those prison officers, but also all the other officers that work with them that will be affected. And as we all know, none of this is new. This level of violence isn't new, and excessive violence that prison officers have to endure and have done for many years now has been beyond acceptable. It has been all too often ignored, and it must come to an end. But I also know that Mark and Steve and all of you in this room will continue to make sure that it is on the agenda of the decision makers, the media, and indeed the public. And I know you've done a fabulous job of making sure those voices have been heard in recent times. And there is no greater show of this than the campaign that this union ran to introduce parva in the youth estate. And I'm pleased that the government has now agreed to approve its use, because we all know in this room the huge challenge that is faced in the young offender estate, and the instances in which this would be so important to protect life and limb of officers and our members, but also of young people. And whilst I know it doesn't solve all of the problems, and there's a lot more things we need to do to make the prison estate safer, I think this is a big win for the POA and its members, and it shows the strength of a union and the strength of collective action, and why all of you need to go back to your establishments and make sure that your members know that it's the union campaign that brought about that change. And so other changes that they want to see need to be done through this union with collective action to challenge decision makers and make sure it happens. This win for the POA shows that the union does have the power to influence its change, and this starts with constructive dialogue between the POA and the government, which will mean that voice of everyone in this room is heard. So finally, I just want to say a heartfelt thank you to you all, and particularly the NEC, for all the support that you have shown me personally, both when I was a candidate and still working in the prison, but also now as an MP. I was going to give a special shout out to HMP Morland, who I would have said were the best committee here, but I found out an hour ago that they're pissed off home. So, my loyalties. Apparently childcare issues. So my loyalties are open to be bought from now on in for further shout-outs. But I want to end on this promise that I will continue to make sure that the voice of prison officers is heard at every level in our government. And I hope that whilst I am only the second one to be elected to our parliament, that many, many more will follow at all levels of government and council. Because your experience, our experience, brings so much to the table, and we must make sure that someone is always sat at it. So thank you for inviting me to speak here today. I'm sure that Mark, Steve and the NEC will continue to hold my feet to the fire over the next 4 years to apply as much pressure as possible to get the outcomes that you all want to see. And it's fantastic to be here 2 years on from when I was last a POA chair. And I look forward to speaking to you all throughout the rest of the day. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Sally. It's great to see you, and you will always be part of the POA family. And I consider Sally to be a friend, former colleague, but she is a friend. And whenever we meet up in the House of Commons, I don't know if you noticed, but when you go to the bar in the House of Commons, you're not allowed to buy a drink. So the politicians have to buy a drink. So I welcome your invites to the bar at the House of Commons, because I never have to buy a drink. It's great. But no, I know, but you'll never admit it, but I know that you were influential in a rollout of parva in the YCS estate, because you've got the ear of government ministers and secretaries of states in your role. So I know you were influential in that. So thank you so much for all your efforts in supporting us. Now, no one goes away empty-handed, and I've been the rock shop for you, Sally. And with you being a Donny girl, I thought, what flavour could I get you that reminds you of Billy Biscuits? If you know, you know. Blue Wicked Flavour Rock. Please show your appreciation for Sally Jameson.